Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another week of the Offseason podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Brodie and Trevor. Hopefully, I'll be able to see this whole episode. I made sure I upped my electrolytes intake so I don't go blind with my migraine coming back again this morning. How are y'all doing this week, though? Everyone can see?
Yeah, no migraines. I've got
Great.
my full vision.
Good start.
I'm fine.
Good start. Well, sweet. We're actually going to kick it off with, I believe it's Clayton Lewis sent a story in, and I'm assuming it's the Clayton that works for us.
Has to be.
I would imagine. I don't know how many Clayton Lewises there are that play disc golf, but I got a good kick out of this one, and hopefully y'all will too. So Clayton said, back in fall 2017 when I was playing MA2, I played a C tier in York, South Carolina. We're on our second hole of the first round, and one of my card mates throws a disc which kicks down a hill. We start searching and can't find it. Another card mate of mine says, well, the rule says we have to start a timer and all search for the disc. It takes me a few minutes to smoke a cigarette, so I'll light one up and we'll look for that long. No one questioned him, and at that time I wasn't exactly sure of the lost disc rule, so I didn't question it. We kept looking and couldn't find the disc, and sure enough, the guy goes, all right, cigarette's almost gone. Sorry, but you have to re-tee with a stroke penalty. Nobody disagreed. The poor guy went back to the tee, and we proceeded with the round. Some crazy stuff happens in lower division C tiers.
That's awesome.
That was his timer. He just lit up a cigarette. Like, this thing's done, man. That's 3 minutes.
That's amazing. This is why some people like, and I don't even think, like he said, this is in 2017. Like I think post-COVID, like with all the new people in the sport, like you don't see as much of this anymore. But like back in the day, if you played like lower, like local C tiers and even some like unsanctioned stuff, you'd see crazy stuff like that all the time. It just wasn't even that shocking. And I don't know that everybody has experienced that, but this is why, like, if I were to make a disc golf documentary, that is, I'd be going to C tiers. Like, I'd be going to find that guy who's timing a disc timer with a cigarette. Like, that's hilarious.
That's what, Brodie, this is kind of what drew you to that Las Vegas tournament, wasn't it? Like, you just were always on the pro scene, and then out of nowhere, you witnessed a local tournament, and you're like, what is going on here? It's incredible.
Yeah, I did. If you go back and dig, I can't remember what the hashtag was, but I did a bunch of live tweeting while my buddy was playing in an MA3 tournament out here in Vegas. And the one thing that I still remember that sticks out was on might have been hole 2. Like hole 2 or 3. It was very early in the tournament. A guy busts out a disc. Goes, I've never thrown this disc before. Just bought it. I need everyone to sign it. It's what I do every tournament. He made everyone sign it, and then he yelled something and then chucked it off without having any idea how it flew. And I was just like, all right, well, I mean, that's MA3 for you. So yeah, I mean, this is a hilarious story. And honestly, I respect it because I think sometimes maybe in these smaller tournaments, people just I guess you say make up your own rules, and technically he did make up his own rule with the cigarette thing. But I respect the fact that he had some sort of timing mechanism.
At least he timed it. Yeah, that is a good point. Better to use a cigarette than nothing.
Yeah.
I want to know how much time actually elapsed. Like, surely, I mean, I wouldn't know, but like, how long does it take to smoke a cigarette? Like, if you just
find out.
If you just
say someone that's
absolutely sucking that thing down, like what is that? Like how quickly can you smoke a cigarette?
6 minutes. So you get,
wow.
But maybe he was really puffing. Yeah, maybe he was really puffing though.
This is gonna show my lack of knowledge of smoking a cigarette, but can you really like increase the speed?
Yes.
Smoking a cigarette?
Oh,
like,
yes. It's based off of how much you puff.
So if you're
like,
well, right, because each time you,
I'm gonna Google the world record for fastest cigarette.
Each time you puff on it, you're creating it, burning it. You're burning the paper more and more back. Like that's the idea. So, I mean, I'd say what's the record? Somebody do it in
10
one puff?
puffs? No way. A typical smoker will take 10 puffs on a cigarette over roughly 5 minutes. I mean, I guess that's right. You just like take a puff every 30 seconds is basically what that is.
So
right?
allegedly, in 1996, Stefan Sigmund smoked 800 cigarettes at once, and it took him 6 minutes to get through.
How many?
800.
Is he the smoke goat?
6 minutes.
How do you fit?
You could.
There's a picture and his mouth just open with.
Oh, that's disgusting.
You could fit. Is he still alive?
That was not what I was Googling, was trying to Google,
Probably.
but I'm,
that's like the type
I'm
of
very
guy,
happy with that.
That's the type of guy that'll live to like 105. Like,
Honestly.
that's just what happens. That's so funny. I did, I will say I did one time buy a G-Star Rhino after round 1 before round 2, and I threw it.
Oh, Silas.
Oh my gosh. There we go, Silas.
Wow.
That is incredible. That's a lot of fire.
Yeah,
you'd need a big fire source to light all those.
That's something there.
That's disturbing.
All right, well, we'll move on from that. Next one, the first topic comes from Alex B. And he says, question topic, scandals. While the disc golf community is unlike any other, and I would love to believe that everybody supports maintaining the integrity of the game, it's just a matter of time until someone crazy picks up a disc or something turns up that was meant to stay buried, as has happened in almost every other sport in history. Obviously, nobody is going to be stealing signs in disc golf. I got to thinking about a couple questions all in the same vein. Disc golf scandals. To name just a couple, what's the biggest scandal that could hit professional disc golf in today's environment, i.e., what's the ceiling? Or what do you see as the most likely quote-unquote first scandal, and how will these even be punished? Some examples that came to his mind were a disc manufacturer supplies the player with unapproved, modified, or over/underweight discs in order to win certain events. The world's TD paints C1 half a meter too large/small, maybe even changing this from hole to hole, and only tells a couple players. Wasn't really thinking about players skipping out on their contracts, as that's not necessarily something you get kicked off the Pro Tour for. So he's more saying like scandals in the vein of playing.
Well,
scandals.
The interesting thing is a lot of times when you talk about sports scandals, they are related to betting, and disc golf doesn't really have a huge betting scene, because like a huge scandal would be a player throwing worlds or doing like multiple players conspiring or whatever to basically win money. But since that scene doesn't really exist in disc golf, like the cheating in disc golf, like sneakily, like the way you cheat in sports in a sneaky way is performance enhancing drugs, but right now that's not really being regulated. So that wouldn't be. Now, I'll say this, if it came out tomorrow that, let's just say, somebody who throws really far and is good. I mean, let's say Simon. Let's say it came out tomorrow, and this is nothing against Simon. I don't think Simon would ever use steroids. But let's say it came out tomorrow that Simon Lizotte, or let's even say Eagle McMahon, somebody who has had injury problems and also throws really far, had like used steroids to like nurse themselves back to health and then like continue to throw and like recover faster. I don't really know how disc golf would perceive it, because like I think it would be kind of 50-50, where like half the people would be like, well, it's not really enforced and it's not really that big of a deal. And then some people would be, it's like the Barry Bonds, like some people think he should be in the Hall of Fame and some people don't, because some people are like, well, he cheated, and some people are like, well, he still had to hit the baseball. It's one of those things. So I don't even know if that would create a scandal. Honestly,
I don't know if it'd be like the scenario you just painted of like they're injured and they use it in recovery. I feel like would be handled, and especially the players you named. Like I think if it was Eagle or Simon, I think that would be almost welcomed or handled a lot differently than like, say, like if it came out that Paul during his dominant era was using steroids throughout it. You know what I'm saying? Like if it was something like that, I think that would be a whole different. Again, there's no reason to believe any of it, but like where it's a weird one, because you're right, it's not against the rules, so like it's not cheating right now.
Yeah,
but it's still like,
I don't know how you cheat
moral
in disc
compass
golf.
of the fan base would probably rule against it.
Yeah, I'd say other than pencil whipping, like and like taking your lie wrong, like that's how you would cheat. It'd be like the sneaky stuff like on the course, but like even like a modified or heavier disc isn't going to do anything that crazy. I think the biggest scandals that will break into disc golf are going to be much more like social scandals. Like somebody will get arrested. Or like it'll be scandals that like tear down somebody's image as a player in that respect, but I don't necessarily like cheating scandals is, I think
the cheating scandals that could come out would be like along lines if a player on the card came forth, like they got a guilty conscience and came forth that Holland Hanley did know that her disc didn't cross. Like
it comes out later.
It came out like Paige Pierce knew she missed that triple Mando. You know what I'm saying? Like, or if there's some type of like tight OB call, and eventually like a hot mic gets accidentally released where you hear players talking and they're like, well, look, I like it's most likely out, but I think it's close enough that we're good just to call you safe right here. I think we just move on with it. Like I think that type of stuff would be
disc golfers being too nice. That's a scandal.
That's what I was gonna say too. Is if you aren't who you are on the course, off the course, right? And so you kind of put on, and a lot of people are like this, right? When you go to a lot of people that have normal 9 to 5 jobs, when you go to work, you are probably putting on a different face than you are when you're, watching football with your buddies, right? So this is not just a disc golf problem. This is a problem that everyone has. But when when you go to your 9 to 5 job and then you do something outside of it, it normally doesn't really affect your 9 to 5 job. However, in disc golf, it would, right? So I think the more media that gets involved, the more journalists that are out there, the more cameras that are out there, the more fans that are out there that are being like, hey, I saw this person here after the tournament. Or like you guys were saying, the hot mics, people not being comfortable with, or not comfortable, but people not realizing that, oh, wait, there's more cameras now, there's more mics now. I think that stuff, because we've already seen it right now with the Cat Jessica Weiss situation with just the live camera that was stationary. If Jomez or Central Coast or whoever was around filming, I think that situation would have been handled a lot differently. But because there's just a standalone mic, there's not really a lot of camera crews around. I think you got a conversation that you probably wouldn't have gotten. And so I think more stuff like that, I think that would be like the scandals that would come out if it was on the player side.
Yeah, because the tough part is like in a few years ago, there was a whole thing where they accidentally released overweight destroyers. But like stuff like that, or like if a plastic, like the first run Lunas were technically too stiff, so they had to like rework. But that doesn't really provide a big enough advantage. You know what I'm saying? Like other sports, there's equipment advantages. You can like be like can't you modify a bat in baseball?
Cork
like a
it.
cork.
Yeah, you can cork it back. Yeah,
like that stuff. I feel like the advantage in disc golf is so minute. Of like, okay, you have a 177 instead of 173 gram destroyer. That's not going to be the difference between you winning and losing a tournament.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So where it's not going to be as big of a scandal.
We already have the ability of having all sorts of different types of discs and weights, to where if it was more, hey, you can only have understable discs. Like understable discs are the only discs that you're allowed to use on the Pro Tour. And then it comes out that someone had a Nuke OS stamped as an Avenger SS. Then all of a sudden, like that is an issue. But like you said, yeah, there's not really like, oh my God, this guy has a more overstable disc or more, that doesn't matter. And I could see the weight mattering a little bit, but I still think at a certain point, like if you go to like 200 grams, yeah, it might not be affected by the wind as much, but you're going to lose a lot of distance throwing 200-gram disc versus 175. And yeah, well, they can't see the thumbs up, but
it just popped up.
My camera agreed with me with that statement. There you go.
I think the only modern era, as you're talking, the thing that just came to my mind was back in the day. And I say back in the day, it was like 2015, 16, whenever people would go over and play the Japan Open. Back then, the law's been updated, but back then, anything over 150 grams was considered a weapon in Japan. So it was a fascinating tournament because pros would get over there and have to rework their entire bag to be 150 class discs. It might have been 160 grams, but they were all have to be 150 class discs. So that could have been a scandal if like someone would have won that as a major, and then it comes out that they didn't change their discs, and so they were playing with their max weight putters and everything else, and everyone else is throwing 150 class stuff. That would have been a scandal, but that doesn't happen anymore. That tournament or in that way. So
they should enforce that.
One more.
They should enforce that law in Emporia just so we have to watch them play in the wind. The 150 class discs.
One more scandal. It comes out a player is using another manufacturer's disc that is being stamped.
That's a good one.
That could be a good one.
That would be a good one.
There you go.
And that's realistic. That could happen.
Very much so.
Next one down, we got Jonathan White. He said, just a quick funny story, but I put it in the topics because it ends with a question. He said, I bought a new Z-Flex Luna from you guys, and I couldn't wait to get out and throw it. Had a tournament coming up, so went out for a practice round, and of course, on hole 6, I lost it. I looked for a good 20 minutes because I had just bought it. It was getting late, so I had to move on, and knew I'd be back out there in 2 days for another practice round, and I would look again. Luckily, I had my name and number written on it. Well, to my surprise, someone texted me the next day at 11 a.m. on Sunday, and we were busy after church. So I replied to them and said, 1:30 p.m., super excited they had found it. I was very thankful because I hardly ever get discs returned. I then received a message that they were trying the disc out and lost it again. But but don't remember where they left it. If you find a disc, should you text the person right away and then try it out, or try it out and then text them at the end of the round?
You shouldn't try it out at all.
I was gonna say that's why I wanted to bring it up.
That's a funny question. This poor guy.
Option C, you don't try the disc out.
Like, I'd rather, if you find my disc, I would rather you not tell me you found it than use it and lose it so that I just get like hung out to dry. Like, that's just so
because
funny.
At least like on hole 6, he had an idea where he had lost
I tried it out. Like,
and someone grabbed it, went through it a little bit, and now he has no idea where they lost it. The dude's like, I honestly don't
you
even
made
know.
the situation worse. That's so funny. Who thinks to just
so if you find a disc, if it has no name and number, sure, throw it. If it has a name and number, don't throw it unless the person's like, oh, take it out, give it a toss, or it's yours now.
I would have to
find it, just text them.
I'm trying to think of like what disc. Like, if I was new to disc golf, then maybe there'd be a bunch of discs I could find that maybe it'd be tempting to try them. But I'm trying to think like what kind of disc would I have to find to be like, oh man, I really want to give this a throw before I give this back to this guy.
Imagine you find like an old beat up like KC Pro Rock or McPro Rock 3.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I just found it. I'm gonna give it a toss, and you just chuck it at a tree and it shatters.
That's tough. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You're like,
you just got to block that number and move.
Okay.
You got to leave the country.
Move on.
What do you guys think about the courses that have like the lost and found drop box, where if you find a disc, you put it in this little like, secured drop box.
Yeah.
And then like a local store, someone that, is local that runs that, they come every day or every 2 days and grab all the discs. And
that makes a lot of sense.
That kind of earn.
No, I think if a community has a central hub, like a store or something, that's the best way to go. That's like, we have lost and discs turned into us like every single day. And so we just handle texting, because then you don't have to like find time that works for both people or anything like that. It's just like, hey, we're open, from 12 from like 12 to 6 every day. Come by whenever it works for you.
Yeah, it's easier for everybody. And now they have we have a computer program that does the texting for us, and it tracks all of the discs. So it's so easy. And yeah, if you find a disc, it's actually easier to drop it off with us than to have to worry about making the arrangements yourself.
Yeah,
like it's the best of both worlds.
But the lost box, courses work the same way. It makes life way easier if there's just like one central person that you just like go to and they'll have your lost disc, versus like trying to coordinate. Because pre us being here, like pre us having a store here, then the only way was you communicated back and forth. Because if a disc went to play it again, it was traded in and you had to buy it to get it back. So the only way you're getting a disc back from someone is like meeting up at Food Lion or meeting up at course. And then there was always that awkward part where like you show up to the course and dude's like, you want to get around in?
Oh gosh.
Like, I'm just trying to grab my Leopard 3 and get out of here, bud. I'm sorry.
I can distinctly remember at my home course growing up, there was like a shed by the first tee that was like owned by the club, and it had like a wooden mail slot in it that you would drop in lost discs. And when I first got into disc golf, when I was just so infatuated with disc golf discs, I can remember very specifically like trying to stick a flashlight in that slot to like see if I could see the disc down there. I was like, I wonder how many discs are in there. And I'm like trying to like
Were you trying
look
to steal
in
them,
this
Trevor?
slot. Well, no, I wouldn't have been able to grab them. It was like a mail. I don't even like, that's how obsessed I was, I guess. I mean, I was like 13 years old, but I was like trying to see. I was like, do people actually put discs in here? They're just like in there. I don't know.
I just gotta come back with a bat at night. And
Hey, if the opportunity was there, I'm not gonna say that my 13-year-old ethics would have held up. You never know what I could have done.
The majority of tournaments that we play on tour, they basically just have like the lost and found at the course, and they just bring it in and bring it out every day. So that way you show up, you can just swing by, see if any of your discs are there. One tournament did not do it that way. They actually had a person that was just housing all the discs. So you had to show up to this random person's house, and which is one, kind of awkward, and then two, there was that kind of like, oh well, like come on in while I get the disc, and you're like, I texted you like 10 minutes ago that I was showing up. Like I kind of like you're saying like the round. That's what made me think of like, hey, you want to play a round? Like I was kind of assuming I would just show up and like you would already have the disc.
You just be like on his front porch.
Yeah, or like when you open the door, oh, here's your disc kind of thing. Versus there is that like awkwardness of of like, no, come hang out. I I don't know who you are. And I just want my disc, please. So
That's
I don't
funny.
know. I don't know why that tournament decides to do it that way, but I know a lot of people probably that's not super comfortable probably for a lot of people.
At
I will say,
USDGC, they just toss them all out there. They're just
well,
like
that's what
out on the
USDGC back
table.
in 2016, maybe 2016, 2017. One of the years I was there with Paul, and he had lost the disc on hole 5 it was like, I think he threw it in the water on hole 5 or 6. And after the round, he had to go do an interview, and he was like, "Hey, can you go into?" It was like
The
the
score
pro
shed.
shop was up top, and then underneath was where like the scoring stuff was. Like when it was in that like building by hole
Mm.
1, and it was underneath. And there they had all of the lost and discs just in bins, lost and found discs in bins. And so you had to like go, and they had to let you in so that they make sure you're a pro. And so I walked up to it, and luckily the guys at Innova East, I'd met them, so I like told them, "Hey, I'm just looking for this disc for Paul." They're like, "Oh yeah, go check the bins." I was like a kid in a candy store because
Oh,
like
it's
you're just going
crazy.
through, and it
It's
was just
crazy.
like all of my favorite pros discs are just right here. They just thrown in the water. I'm
Yeah.
just looking through. I'm like,
All their signatures just
yeah. I'm
right
like,
on
oh
there.
my word, this is Eagles whatever. This is there's Sexton's Firebird right here, like the
Yeah.
actual Sexton Firebird, like in his bag. Sexton. It was crazy. I didn't find his disc.
Yeah.
But I found a lot of gems. I didn't take any of them, obviously, but
I know.
it was like I had 5 minutes in paradise in there.
When I played in the Dean's Cup, they had it in like the scores shed, and I had lost a disc, and I went and I actually found it in there. But it was the same thing where I was just like, I'm just a college kid, man. I don't know anything to these pros, man. What's to stop me from just grabbing all these things? Like, yeah, I just had a rough day out there today. Hey, I didn't grab any.
Yeah.
But 13-year-old Trevor was knocking on the door.
There's a few tournaments that the guys that do an incredible job where they sort by color, which
That's nice.
saves so much time. You just walk up, you've got a yellow disc that you lost. Here's the 30 yellow discs. Nope, not there, gone. So there are some tournaments that, I mean, it is a crazy thing to think about, like you losing your disc and getting it back as easy as you do at some. It's very nice.
That's nice. Steve Lawson wants to know, what is the best time of year and format to run a short annual tour to grow disc golf in the Southern Hemisphere, helping us become a truly global sport. We're trying to attract top U.S. and European pros to come play in New Zealand summer during their off season. What would it take to make this concept successful and sustainable? We're running 4 weeks, 4-event series starting in January 2024. What is important to most touring pros? What would be the barriers to coming? Genuinely interested in what we can do to ensure this concept succeeds.
Well,
Cheers, Steve.
I think you just did a free ad there, Hunter.
Yeah,
I probably did. Yeah.
Here's the big problem with that idea. The big
Shout
problem
out to
is
that guy.
the big problem is the pros have an off season that is so tiny, and it's getting even smaller. Where those pros do not want to be on the road during the off season. It's the last thing they want to do is be on the road. I mean, the answer to your question is money. That is how you get them there. And it would have to be considerable because, like I said, nobody who just finished the touring season really wants to go back and do it. Now, there are some disc golfers who the idea of travel, if it was, especially if their travel and accommodations were paid for, like that might appeal to them to go to like New Zealand. But that's a pretty big ask. You could, I'm not saying you couldn't get like maybe like some of the fringe guys, like maybe guys who are trying to cut it on tour and want to get more like competitive experience in the off season, but like your main players, there's no way they're going to go to New Zealand in the off season.
The top guys, that's very true of. I think like they get through the tour championship and they're like done.
They're exhausted.
They don't play. They don't touch a disc for a month. But once you get outside the top 20, top 30, like there's some guys in there that'll be notable enough pros that, at least you'll know their name if they showed up, but they still play throughout the off season. Whether it's financially they want to, or they'll play with disc golf every weekend. So what else are they gonna do? Those type guys, yeah, if you could get the money right, whether it be, hey, we'll pay for you to come out here, and or it's just so much added cash that it's hard to ignore. Because I mean, if New Zealand, he said New Zealand summers during the off season, so like I'm sure it's an enticing thing for some pros to go spend a month in January.
Scott Stokely will go for free. You don't have to pay Scott Stokely.
Like it's enticing to go spend January in a warm place, getting ramped up for the season, play a few competitive events that aren't going to matter for the pro tour, but like get you going. But it's only enticing, I think, to the guys who aren't competing for a win each and every week. Like the Ricky Wysocki's of the world, the Paul McBeths of the world, they're not doing this. But you get like I could see like it's the type post that back in the day you would have seen like Nico and Philo and like I could see Eric Oakley or people like that where like, yeah, they're big names, you know them, right? But they're not like the top of the sport each and every week. I could see them like, oh, we're spending 4 weeks in New Zealand to kick the year off. Like I think it could make sense, but the biggest barrier is money because they're not flying out there for a chance to win $25 and a high five. So.
Right. It's very.
This
expensive.
was posted in the players group on Facebook. I can't remember who posted it. It might have been Perkins, but there was a handful of people that said already that they're interested in going out there. And so I would even argue too, you said top 20, top 30. I think there's a handful of guys in the top 20 that are still in the mindset of, oh, I just want to go play and have a good time and travel.
Yeah.
And they aren't in the mindset of like, I have a family, so no, the off season I need to spend time with them, or hey, I'm getting old. I've done this for years and years and years. I need to like pick and choose where I travel. But I think you'd actually be able to get a lot. But to your point, I think enticing people, easiest way of doing that is just like, hey, we'll pay for your travel. So we'll make the trip completely free for you to come out here, and then whatever money you end up winning, like that's all basically profit, right? And so I think doing that, you would probably right now entice a lot of people to be able to do that. But as time goes on, it's going to get harder and harder because I don't think you're going to have, at a certain point in time, you're not going to have people that are playing disc golf on the Pro Tour as a lifestyle. You're going to have people playing disc golf on a Pro Tour as a career.
Right.
And like, this is what they're going to do to make money for their family. This is the money that the money that they're making on tour is what's going to be able to provide their kids to go to college or to pay their kids to go to camp. Right now, we have a lot of people still that are like, hey, in 5-10 years, if I come out and I have zero money to my name, but I was able to travel around the world playing disc golf for 10 years, I'm happy. I think those people that's going to get far. Those people are going to get kind of.
Yeah, well, you have a sport now where you have a sport now where there's a lot of players who can make a very solid annual salary just in the time frame that the tour takes place, and then have the luxury of being able to take time off. That didn't used to be the case. Like, it used to just be an all-year affair because, like you said, it was more of a lifestyle. Like, you had to make it your lifestyle if you even wanted to be able to survive. You couldn't just. But now, there's enough money to be made within the season's confines, and it's not even. There's not even much time to be had in the off season. It'll be even less next year. But yeah, but money talks, and there are still players that would consider it.
It was
before Paul. Oh, real quick. Before Paul signed that big contract with Discraft, how many players do you think were making over $500,000 a year?
A year?
Over $500K?
One or two. Paul and Ricky. If I don't even know if Ricky was. Paul probably was the only one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would imagine.
Yeah, so now there's probably 5, maybe 6.
Yeah.
Over $500K a year?
Yeah.
Well, you gotta think bonuses and stuff too, and disc
Yeah, I'm
sales.
saying for everything, tournament earnings. There's definitely over 5 now. So I mean that's right there is really good growth, and if it keeps going up that way to where now you've got everyone in the top 30 is making over 100K a year, then it's going to it does change things as far as, hey, do I want to travel to New Zealand and play my off season, or do I want to get myself sorted out before going into the next season?
One thing that there's this trend going on right now. I think it started with Nicholas Antela, and then Casey White was kind of the next one, and then it just turned into a trend of like posting the picture with the first pro you met. And one thing that I noticed is like more and more pros kept posting it was like, I don't know if young's the right word, but how young the tour is in the sense of like people playing, because like a lot of them were going to tournaments as fans, and so they weren't on tour yet, and so many of them were like the same era that I was getting into disc golf of like 2015. And so they're only 6-7 years into playing, and now they're on tour. And what was interesting is like the guys they were meeting were the Paul, Simon, Ricky, like that crop of players who are now like the tour veterans, and it's a weird transition that just didn't really click in my head until now, because like that era of players is kind of like they were the transition era where if you were touring back in 2011 to 2015, 2016, that whole probably even up to 2017, 18, it was a year-round affair. Like you started with like an A tier. A lot of people started with Wintertime Open in like late January, early February, and then you're playing a lot of big A tiers mixed in with national tours, and it went through October, and only like one or two guys had the luxury of being done in October. A lot of people were then playing like Hall of Fame Classic still existed, and that was post USDGC, and then people, a lot of the fall colors was up here in November, and that was a big tournament. Like people would go and play A tiers through December, and they would take like maybe a month off. Whereas like now the modern touring era, you see a lot more players get to October, and it's almost like if they keep playing, it's because they want to. There's some that keep playing out of a necessity, but there's a lot of players that like if they keep playing or pick up a tournament here or there, it's just for fun. Like they just want to keep playing, to just keep competitive. But it's like a choice they can make now, whereas before it wasn't a choice. It was like, no, disc golf's what I do. I do it 52 weeks out of the year, and I play 40 tournaments or 30 tournaments during that time frame. And now 7 years later, this like new crop of touring pros, it's like I play on the pro tour, and then I have an off season. And I feel like that's a new shift, and then it's going to get more aggressively that way. Like Brodie was saying, once it's no longer we're getting out of lifestyle into a career.
It's just
where, like,
money.
Yeah, NBA players, they'll play pickup games here and there during the summer, but they're not going and playing another league. They're not going and playing overseas.
Well,
during
they can't. They can't.
Yeah,
They can't.
That's true. That's a contract thing. But yeah,
the best comparison would be like the UFC, MMA fighting, which is year round. So you look at some guys that are like that have contracts where it's 20 show, 40 if they win, right? They make $20,000 if they walk into the cage. They make $40,000. Not on top of that, they make $20,000 on top of their 20 to get 40 if they win. Those guys are trying to fight 4 or 5 times a year, right? But let's just say they're fighting 4 or 5 times a year. They're moving up the ranks. Let's say they end up winning the belt. Now we're lucky to see those guys fight twice a year. And it's because they're making millions of dollars to fight. And so that's why I think you're going to see that too, just even on the pro tour side. Take away the offseason. You're going to see now, and we are seeing it, you're not even playing every pro tour event. I just talked to Simon. He's not even playing the West Coast tour this year.
No one is. There's no West Coast tour.
He's going to skip out. Yeah. So it's like, we're going to see more and more of that just even on the pro tour side. And that's only going to get amplified now if someone ends up going and winning a tournament and the winner takes home $75,000. Now it's like, oh, wait, like I can take a week or two off now.
Yeah,
most definitely.
Next question here is brought to us by Shay Stevens. He said, have you ever thrown out your whole bag and just rebuilt from scratch? Been battling a nagging shoulder injury and reworking my form, and I find myself not trusting discs like I usually could. I've gained consistent distance on my throw, which is nice, but my discs are not turning as much as I'm used to. While it stinks having shelves of backups covering new to very used, I'm considering emptying my bag and starting over from scratch. I'm sure being disc retailers will have absolutely no influence on your recommendation, but I appreciate it.
I think I've done it 3 times, but
I've done it over long periods other than my MVP challenge.
Mine was all obligations. Like in college, we had to throw Prodigy, and I wasn't throwing any. So I had to switch all the way over. And then when I first started with Foundation, we were only selling Discraft, so I had to switch everything to Discraft. I was barely throwing any. And then when I joined Team Dynamic, I was not throwing a ton of Trilogy. I switched to all Trilogy. That was all new plastic, basically. So I've done it 3 times, all for obligations. And yeah, it's not that hard. When you're not playing, if you're not playing pro disc golf, it's not super hard.
It sounds like, for him, it's more of like learning to trust the discs and like figure out consistency. And I don't think it necessarily comes from like, it's almost a confidence thing more than a disc problem, if that makes sense. And for me, I found like if I am struggling with MD3 or a PA3 or like my molds that I know I love, if I put a fresh one in, then I don't have a relationship with that disc yet. So it's not necessarily the mold.
But he's got bad relationships though with all of his discs.
But like it's a new disc. he says he has a bunch of backups that are new to vary use. So like, and what I'm saying is like, if you have a brand new hex sitting on your shelf, you put that in your bag. You have to learn how that hex flies, and then you develop a relationship with it. Versus going out and being like, well, I'm not a hex thrower anymore. I'm gonna just throw a buzz. When it's like, well, it wasn't really the hex. You just stopped trusting the disc in your bag. I think sometimes just a little switch up is all we need. Same thing with putting. Like I would switch from white PA3s to red PA3s if my white ones felt like they weren't going in the basket anymore. And like just a little switch, even though I didn't switch the mold, I was throwing the same putter. It's just like I hadn't missed as much with these yet. So it was like a fresh blank of confidence. You only do that so many times where you realize you're just a bad putter, but it works for a week or two.
It's true.
Yeah, for me, I would say this is probably the thing I'm looking forward to the most whenever I do decide to stop playing, because right now there's no real reason. That's why people, I guess, sometimes are confused when like Discraft comes out with a new mold or a new disc. They're like, oh, you could put this in your bag, and I'm like, my bag right now is pretty much the same. I don't really foresee my bag changing because at this point in time, I have all the discs I need. Now it's just getting better at throwing them, getting more consistent. That's why I'm not performing well. It's not because I'm missing a specific disc. I have all the discs to throw all the shots. I just have to get better at throwing the shots. But when I'm done, I could definitely see like the joy and excitement of trying new discs, right? Because I don't think that is the best way to get better at disc golf. I think really if your goal is I want to go out at my home course and shoot as good as I possibly can, well, you're probably not practicing the way you should to begin with. So, dialing your bag in perfectly to only throw the same disc every single week, every single time you play is probably also not going to help you that much. So you're missing out on the joy of like, hey, a brand new disc with a brand new plastic disc came out. I'm going to want to see how it throws. And so I could see that. But like I said, for me, I don't really have that because I'm just straight on results. That's all I really care about. And I get the results.
I think
now,
that
if they come out with a nuke that like is crazy pop top, then maybe I'll try something like that. But I'm not trying, like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, maybe the crank this season will be better for me than the nuke.
No, I definitely think there's like seasons you go through as a disc golfer of like, and not everyone goes through all the same ones, but like if you're in a really competitive, like you're trying to play tournaments and you're trying to score as good as possible, then stick with what you got. And like once you have all the slots filled, like if you're missing an understable fairway, go find it. But once you have all the slots filled, then yeah, like what Brodie is saying is just rep it out and just get better with that versus like what I'm in, the problem I'm running into is I'm not trying to just be as good of a disc golfer as I can. I'm just trying to have fun, which means I'm gonna put a new disc in my bag, and then we're gonna go play around, and I might have thrown it 3 times before I get to a hole that I want to throw it on. And like, yeah, of course I'm not gonna know fully what it's gonna do. I haven't thrown it for months and months, but I'm having way more fun with disc golf that way because I don't have 10 tournaments on my schedule that I'm trying to, make sure I place in and cash at. I'm just going out and having fun playing frisbee golf. Right. So I think there's 2 different levels. So like if you're on the side of like, I don't have a bunch of tournaments I'm playing, I just want to go have fun, then yeah, rebuild your bag from scratch, and then as soon as you get bored, do it again because that's a ton of fun. Build out an all blue bag and an all pink bag, and then flip a quarter and decide which one you're playing with tomorrow.
I was gonna say we should. I have 2 video ideas for us to do at some point.
Oh heck yeah!
The first one is like a color one, where we like make our bags all the same color. First off, I think that looks sick in the thumbnail if we did that. The second one is I want to do one where it's like the least popular. So like what disc from each manufacturer like isn't really popping, right? We've sell like 5. What?
We've done it.
Well.
We did a video where we play with our worst selling discs.
Worst selling and best.
But
selling.
I want to do manufacturer though. So like I get Discraft, you get MVP, Hunter gets Innova or something.
Fair enough.
And then we get like the 5 discs that like don't sell the most.
Salas used to have a one color bag. It looked awesome. And he gave up on it.
Yeah, Salas is all blue. He gave up on it.
It's hard, right? That seems like nearly impossible to like.
It's easy to set it in. It's difficult to stick with because a disc will come along that you want so bad to be in your bag, and then you'll be like, well, it's purple, and that's not my bag color.
Just got diet blue.
It's a
That's
tough
not-
lifestyle
Just
to
gotta get a lot
adapt
of
to.
blue dye.
Yeah, but it went
A lot of companies too. You can't even pick your color.
Yeah,
So
it's
if
not
you're like,
the
I really
easiest.
want this disc, you're just like rolling the dice and hoping it comes the right color.
Or you'll get like blue, but it's like not the same shade of blue as the rest of your bag. It's not an easy lifestyle. It's not for me. Definitely not for me.
Kevin wants to know, and I'm asking this because it was probably asked by like 6 or 7 different people, but I'm gonna just use Kevin's question.
Hey, Kev.
They want all of our first ace stories. If you remember them.
Yeah. My first ace was pretty boring. I was playing at my home course. I had been playing for, this is 2016 maybe. I've been playing for a few years. And it was hole 15 at Gifford Pinchot State Park. I threw a G-Star Rhino that had been in my bag for a very long time on a backhand. Hyzered, went in. It was not super exciting. I think all of my aces have been with putters.
We put the video of that ace in our bogey row battle there, didn't we? Didn't Connor roll the tape on that?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, it's in there somewhat. But yeah, it was not super exciting. I was by myself, like nobody was even there to react. I was kind of just like, it was slightly blind to where like I heard chains and I was just like really excited because I don't even know if I had ever like hit chains before. I was still pretty new to disc golf, and yeah, it was cool. I was hyped.
I'd been playing, mine I think was also in 2016, so I think I've been playing close to a year. And I had a Ledgestone edition zone. It was a TI zone. It was before those were stock. And it was just like my favorite zone. And I took Lizzie to go play disc golf, my now wife, then girlfriend. We might have been engaged at that point, doesn't matter. But it was her first time playing disc golf with me. And so we went to Peaksview Park.
Wow.
And we went out and we were playing. And she got to the wooded section and she didn't want to play in the woods. Makes sense. So she just walked with me the rest of the round. And we got to hole 18 and I was playing bad. I was playing awful. And because it was one of those things where, like, you know, you want to play good when you take someone out you're trying to impress. And I was just playing terrible and on a short course, too. I was just par and everything. And so we get to 18, and there's basically 2 gaps on 18. And if you throw through, this is to the short pin because there wasn't long pins then. If you throw through the straight one, you can just, for my zone, I would just throw it flat, and it would just kind of hyzer to the left, and that's where the basket was. The right gap was way less taken, and you'd almost have to throw like a skip shot. Well, I go to throw the flat shot through the straight gap because that's the shot I always played, and I grip locked it straight through the right gap. And so I'm like, great, this is the culmination of like an awful round. And so I turn around, I'm like, that was terrible. And about the time I said that, I just heard chains explode. And I turned around, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And so we like walk up over the hill, and there's my disc sitting in the basket. I'd grip locked it so bad and onto hyzer that it just skipped up, and I guess flare skipped in. So I freaked out, but like I said, it was Lizzie's first time ever walking playing disc golf with me. So she just thought it happens.
Yeah,
like, you know, she went out for me the one round ASAP because I've been playing for like a year and a half at that point, and I played Peaksview hundreds of times. So like I should have had an ace by that point. And so I'm like freaking out. I'm like texting my brother, and she does not care at all because at this point she's been walking for like 12 holes. And she's like, "Can we just go?" And I'm like, "Well, but I gotta like sign the bottom of the disc. I gotta take a picture with it." She's like, "No, we're leaving." And so I just wrote ace number 1 on the bottom of it, and it's still on my shelf somewhere.
I think I stopped writing him down after ace 3.
That's the only one I wrote. I don't know how many aces I have.
I wrote 1, 2, 3, and then I believe my next 2 were on Foundation's channel because I think I had the one with the starter set disc. I think I actually wrote that one down as well. But the latest one I had was with that Buzz at Peaksview, and I didn't write that one down. But I think that would have been ace 5.
Wait, which ace was that? Did I witness ace 2 or 3?
You saw ace. You saw both 2 and 3.
Oh, heck yeah.
Because you saw Hideaway. Because you saw the one.
I've seen all of your aces but ace number 1.
Yeah, because ace
I'm
2,
your big germ.
Yeah, ace 2 is with the quad Mando, and ace 3 was downhill with the AVR 3.
That's right.
With Hannah, and yeah.
Heck yeah. All right.
Dang.
Brodie, do you remember your first ace?
No.
Do you remember? Here's a good question for you.
What do you mean? You're lying. That's a lie.
No, I honestly have no idea.
No, because he did the disc golf trick shot videos back in the day.
When you got back into the sport, you don't remember your first
back into the sport. What are you talking about?
When you first started actually playing, so like
before, like not counting any time you played it, like with Avery Jenkins and Simon Lizotte way back when.
Oh, I didn't ace with them. We played 3 holes.
Whatever. And what you're
In
telling
most
me,
of those videos, I'm throwing an Ultra Star. I'm not
That
throwing
is
a
true.
disc. I
That counts.
literally
PGA
those two
approved.
videos. I think I threw an Ultra Star.
PGA approved.
PJ approved. I was literally trying to think about it, and I guarantee I probably took a photo and posted it on Instagram. So I was thinking about scrolling back and seeing.
Oh.
Well, do you remember your first, like the first trick shot you like tried and hit?
Every time you bring
No.
that phone near your microphone, it makes a delightful noise
Yeah,
in my
sorry.
ear.
That's why
I didn't know. I didn't know if you were like.
That's why I didn't want to do it. I mean,
what's the
the
first
easy
one on
way of doing
video?
the easy way of doing the first trick shot is there's a timestamp, right? There's a video. University of Florida. That's where I did my frisbee trick shots.
Yeah.
Do I know which one I made first in that video? No.
You could find your first ace recorded on UDisc. You can see all your aces on there, and you can find the.
Well, that's if you
earliest
track
You
them.
one.
think I was using UDisc?
What? Your first
Well, like,
one on?
I'm just
the
saying,
first
like
one
that'll
on
at least
video,
give us some kind of stat.
Your first one on video
How do I do
was
that? How do I do
in
that?
If you just go to
Hawaii.
your profile on UDisc and you scroll down, it'll say aces, and then you click
You
on.
say my first video was in Hawaii?
Your first ace on video, your first disc golf ace on video was when you and Kelsey went to
Correct.
Hawaii. Yeah,
Correct.
at that
Yeah,
military.
I remember
base.
that one.
that.
Raptorius.
How do I find this ace
You
thing?
go to your
what?
profile on UDisc, and if you
Okay.
start scrolling down, you should see something that
Yeah.
says aces. Then you just click on that.
0.
You have
Dang.
okay. You've never recorded an ace in UDisc. Well, what's funny is
0.
mine is also saying 0 aces, and I know I have some in there, so I think it's broken right now. Because I
Where is
for
it?
sure have
Oh
aces
yeah, it
recorded on
also
UDisc.
says 0 aces.
So UDisc
So it
is
is
And I've
broken.
been using. I have 365 rounds on UDisc.
Yeah, I have
Man, you
303.
suck.
Well, Trevor
0
never
aces,
finishes our
365
rounds. Every
rounds.
video we play, Trevor
Yeah,
doesn't
our
finish.
rounds are all complete. Our UDisc profiles would be an
Brutal.
interesting thing to study because none of them are accurate. It's usually like rounds that are very skewed for
I do
various
have
reasons.
my head-to-head against Trevor, but we can bring that up later.
That's skewed as well.
It is skewed. This last one, I already ruled on this in the Discord, but I figured Reb would like to hear from you two as well.
What? Oh,
Oh,
No
Silas found the
way.
first ace post.
dude, Silas is goated.
What's the
disc
date on
is that my black? Is that my black get freaky?
What is that disc, Silas? The Black Get Freaky.
What's the date
Oh,
on that?
Yeah,
oh
what
wait,
day
that's
was this, Silas?
McCord.
April 30th,
April
2020.
30th. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, people got pissed
Why?
Why?
because that was my 4th month of playing disc golf ever.
That makes sense. That's fair. But I mean, you're the
Yeah.
trick shot guy, so like,
Wait,
course
what
you're gonna-
course
No, that
it
was
at?
so that was with Bear. That was with Bear. I don't know if you guys know Bear,
Yeah.
but
of
that
course
was
you know Bear.
Yeah, we played.
yeah, that was with Bear. That was hole. What is that? 12, 13 at McCord, and that was a forehand.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there
Yep.
you go.
Yeah.
We found it.
There you go. I knew I posted it. So there
There
it
we
is.
go.
All right, so we can weigh in on this situation for Reb that he's got himself into. I think it's pretty clear, but in case y'all don't think so. So Reb Willie D, for the listeners, if y'all aren't aware, he's been the admin of our Discord server for years. He's also on Team Foundation, and he made a wager with another Team Foundation member. So a wager was made regarding Simon versus Paul in terms of majors. Who would win more majors this year? Since neither of them won a major, the tiebreaker was Elite Series wins. Since it is technically classified as a Pro Tour playoff event, does D-Glow count as an Elite Series win for Simon?
Of course it does.
Yeah. I just wanted, this wasn't really a topic. It was just so that Reb could hear it from more than just me. Because
How is that
he
how is that even getting debated? You just
I
try to
don't
get
know.
him on a
I wouldn't-
technicality.
If it was
Yes.
the tour championship, I would not count. I would
Correct.
not
I would
count.
agree with that.
Well, but I went to the evidence I screenshot for him is I went to Simon's profile, and next to D-Glow it says ES for Elite Series. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
hard one to
because the
argue
Elite
against.
Series now if the playoffs got to the point of where there was like 50 people in the field, I think right now you could still count it, but I think in the future it would kind of be an asterisk, right? Because if there was 130 people in every field, and out of those 130, anyone can win.
Yeah.
And now you're playing an event that only has 50 people. Granted, they are the 50 best people.
you change it a
still
little
think
bit.
that event is easier to win than the one that has 130 people that could win.
Right.
So that could change, but right now, like no.
Yeah.
Not so fast.
Because the bet was basically there's a guy, Reb throws basically all Discraft, and the guy he made the bet with throws basically all MVP. And so the bet was basically whoever wins they have to switch their bag. So Reb now has to go all MVP next year. So he was trying to get his way out.
Oh, so Reb was trying to say that D-Glow event did not count.
Yeah, because if the D-Glow event did not count, then that would leave Simon and Paul both with 1 Elite Series.
So wait, Reb's got to throw all MVP now?
He's got to go all MVP next year. Yeah.
Was the Paul won the PCS?
That was, or PCS, yeah. That was Elite.
That was Elite?
Mm-hmm. And then Simon won D-Glow and Music City.
That's even crazier. It's like Paul's win was at the PCS, and he's going to try and argue the playoff one. That's tough, Reb. That's tough.
Yeah, because that PCS field was like the weakest
wounded field.
All the...
Yeah,
it's the same thing as like the majors, right?
Just like European Open. Yeah,
winning the European Open. It's getting harder and harder, but it still is the easiest major to win.
Yeah. All right, wrapping the show up with this final story. And to be honest with you, I don't remember what it was, so I'm excited to read it as well as you. This was submitted anonymously here. Said, I played a local C tier earlier this year, and we had 2 cards of MPO players on a course that has 2 T-pads and 2 baskets on every hole. The TD is newer to running tournaments and wanted to make a weird, confusing layout. I strongly advised him before the tournament to make it simple and just have MPO players play long tees to long baskets, and of course, he chose not to take my advice. He decided to send an email out with this mixed layout listing.
Oh, no.
Well, halfway through the first round, my card noticed one of the holes was listed different on PDGA Live versus the email he sent out. So we called him, and he said to follow the email and disregard PDGA Live. We get to the 18th hole, and we played to the long basket. The other MPO card was teeing off on hole 1 and noticed us playing to a different basket than they played. They came over and tried to stroke us for a misplay. We started arguing and explained what the TD told us. Well, apparently they had a similar issue on a different hole, and the same TD told them to follow PDGA Live and disregard the email. Argument started between the 2 cards, and the TD shows up, and both cards start arguing with him. I looked at him and said, maybe next time you'll listen to me. So what do you do? What's fair in this situation? Both cards played the way the TD told them, and the email said one thing, PDGA Live said another. What we ended up doing is completely illegal, but it was the only fair thing we could come up with. We all replayed the 7 holes that we played differently with a mob of 8 MPO players and changed our scores on PDGA Live.
Oh my gosh.
Craziest tournament I've ever played by far. At least I was able to come away with the win after all this pain and suffering.
Oh my gosh. I mean, technically fair, I guess, but that is
definitely
outrageous.
Illegal.
Yeah,
I don't know what the technical answer was.
The technical answer is you got to throw out the round.
Well, probably because I don't know.
You got to burn it up.
The caddy book overrules everything, right? So I guess the question is the email the caddy book, or is the PDGA Live the caddy book? Because,
that's a
so
mess.
whichever one's technically considered the caddy book is that's what everyone has to reference, so that's what you go with. But with the modern day PDGA Live
everything?
Stuff, well, yeah. If the TD,
There's
but
a
I'm
lot
saying
of potentially overruling things involved.
It's if the TD told you to do something and then it ended up not being the right thing technically to do.
That's what happened. Yeah, but the weird part is he told them, if he would have told them both the go with the email,
correct,
this would have never happened. But he told one card go with live, one card go with the email, and you listen to the TD because the TD's mouth, he wrote the caddy book. He's the one that's making the rules.
I think the whole round's gonna be put under protest.
I don't know what the heck happens.
You gotta lose its sanctioning. That can happen
That's probably why this guy submitted it anonymously, so we couldn't find what tournament this was.
He
doesn't want the win taken off his record.
Rounds can lose their sanctioning if things are submitted after the fact. So that's probably what should have happened.
I would agree
because it shouldn't.
It probably should have just been thrown out, or if you did this, the whole played 7 holes with a mob of 8 players, just that doesn't get a rating at least.
Hand out the winnings and stuff. I mean, I don't know. That's a mess. That's why mixed layouts.
Local C tiers, man, 2 good stories from them.
It's always the best stuff.
I've got another one too. So my buddy playing in MA3. I think the first card out. So they're playing quick. Obviously, I think they're playing in a threesome too. They're playing quick. And they get to the back half of the course, and when they turn around, or when they see other people behind them playing, they realize they played one of the holes incorrectly. Something similar to this, where they played it to the wrong basket, or they played from the wrong tee pad. I don't remember what it was. And so what they agreed to do is they said, all right, we're gonna keep our scores. You can't shoot worse. So they kept the scores, and they're we'll replay the hole properly, But if you shoot better, then you get it. But if you shoot worse, then you get your first score.
Playing best
So
ball.
that's ended up how they ended up replaying it to
That's so funny.
get their score.
I would
was
love
like, oh,
to
man.
hear, if you're listening to this, please submit, like, you can submit it anonymously. We're not going to narc you out. Like, give us your most, like, illegal things that have happened at PDGA tournaments. Not talking about, like, law breaking, talking about PDGA laws being broken, because I think it's so funny to hear. Because, like, you're TD and it's your Saturday afternoon and you're stuck in that situation. You're just like, I do not, like, at this point, I don't care. Like, and you're just like, let's fix it. Let's put a Band-Aid on it. Just play the rest of the holes out. It's so funny.
It is always very funny. Yeah, the only things I can remember that have happened, quote unquote, PDGA illegally. One was I won an MPO tournament, and there was 5 of us in the division, or 6 of us. It was a very small local C tier, and I beat out one of my buddies, so we stay around for payout. And there was 5 of us, and the TD goes, all right, we're gonna pay 4 deep. And me and my buddy are 1 and 2, and so realistically, like, we should be the only 2 getting paid. Maybe the 3rd person gets paid. There's only 5 of us in the field, or what? I think there's only 5 of us in the field, so like, it's not like we're dealing with a big pot here. So I was basically, when the TD said that, he's like, 4, make sure the whole division stays, 4 are getting paid. I was like, 4 are not getting paid. And then the TD like looked at me. I was like, I mean, I think the rest of the division would agree, but like, if you give all 4 of us, we're basically all going to get less than our entry fee back. Versus like,
that's crazy.
The people who actually played well getting at least like $60.
Yeah, what's the logic behind that?
And he was like, though that's the funniest part was, this is in like the modern disc golf era. This is like literally 4 years ago. And he breaks out a binder that just says PDGA rules on it. And then flips open the binder and starts going through page by page.
It's
looking, trying to find the like,
it's like 40%, table. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's 40%. So he finds the payout table, and luckily the payout table is still 40%. So he goes, "Oh, you're right. You're right. Let me do my math real quick." And then ended up paying out the right amount. And the only other thing I remember was like one of the first tournaments I played, or it couldn't have been. I think it was technically the Brawl series. And like the lost disc rule had just been changed in actual PDGA, but the Brawl series is the Blue Ridge Area Winter League is what it stood for. It was unsanctioned, but we played by PDGA rules. And they had made the rule, they didn't like the new lost disc rules. So they told everyone, if you lose a disc, you still go by the old rules. So you play from where it was last seen. So you don't have to go back and play from your last thing. You play from where everyone agrees, kind of your last spot. And I was on like lead or chase card of MA1. So it mattered. My throws did, and I sucked the final round, but this guy's throws mattered. And we lost his disc. Couldn't find it. And someone else on the card was like, well, look, we all saw it. Your disc is right here. If we keep looking, we're going to find it. He's like, so let's extend. Let's look for 5 minutes instead of 3. And we're going to find this thing. And so we kept looking and looking and looking. And again, it's unsanctioned, and it's probably like 30 degrees or something outside. All of us want to go home.
Yeah.
And so he ends up, we don't find it. He threw, and then like as soon as he threw, we take a few steps, and there was his disc in the middle of the fairway. I don't know how we didn't see it. And so then the guy, again, his buddy was like, look, we just threw. We can pick, this is unsanctioned. Just throw from it. We found your disc. Just throw from it. And so he threw from it, and I think he ended up winning. And I just sat there like, what am I mean, we're in the middle of the woods. I don't care enough. We're playing for freaking G-Star Katana right now, so I'm not going to say nothing.
That was a very place to be.
Yeah, because like what was funny was in MA1 this series, they didn't like baggers. So if you were playing MA1 and you won, you got a worse payout than if you were placing lower. So like the lower guys would get like Champ Rock 3s, Champ T-Birds, and the closer you got to winning, the worse your disc got. So if you won MA1, you were getting like a Champ Katana or a Champ Groove every time, because they were like trying to make you, all right, it's time to move up. Love it. It was very fun. But yeah, man, we need to get some cameras at local C tiers. It sounds like there's a lot of fun stuff going down.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up. If you have any topics or stories that you want to submit, that you think we might find funny, or you're genuinely curious about, or you just want to hear us talk about, be sure to submit them through the link down below. Appreciate everyone who's already submitted. If you haven't heard your topic yet, we have not got to all of them. Obviously, we're working through, going through all the good ones. So continue submitting them, and we'll continue bringing you this entertainment each and every week. And we'll see you again next week.